Good day everyone, Trainer Maxim with you. Thank you very much for joining me for this quick fix series. Today we're going to address the hollow body hold. Of course, as always, I thank everyone who supports my channel, your questions, your suggestions. Thank you very much for taking your time to watch. Thank you. Your generosity, super thanks, amazing. And of course, my support angels. I really thank you a lot, guys and girls. Thank you. Often we think that the hollow body hold is created by the core activity, specifically by the front core, six-pack muscle. And in reality, essentially what we do to the spine, we just simply crunch the spine. When you think that the hollow body hold is done by doing this, you think that you're engaging the core, so you're making your body hollow. This is not a hollow body hold. This is a crunched body. It means that the front core simply pulling the rib cage down and the pelvis up. Pelvis into the posterior pelvic tilt and the shoulders into the collapsed, crouched, slouched state. So essentially, you are closing the hips because with the excessive posterior pelvic tilt, the legs can't really move back or sideways with ease. So you're closing the hips and you're closing the shoulders by means of collapsing them forward. Say, if you decided to do the pull-up with this hollow body hold and shoulders are closed, of course, then you will be too far away from the bar and there will be no chance for you to go close to the bar or do the skills such as muscle ups or anything of the kind. Same with the handstands. So we don't really like this hollow body hold. We want to perform this element in a slightly different way. We need to rethink it. So the hollow body hold is not a crunched body. We're not going to drive the spine into the crunch. We're going to think about the hollow body hold as if of a tall tree, empty inside. So the tree stays tall, spine stays neutral, and somehow it's hollow inside. With this hollow, the pelvis is not moving forward, the shoulders are not slouching, the spine is stabilized and the torso is supported by the activity of certain muscles. I'm going to tell you about them shortly. But we need to do a couple of different things to take this hollow body hold. So in the first place, we want to make sure that our spine is staying neutral. Neutral spine means that upper spine is reaching up, lower spine is reaching down. Thereby, we're engaging all the spinal muscles along the spinal column to stabilize the spine, to glue all the vertebrae to one another so that they can't be driven into the slouched position or posterior pelvic tilt. They're going to keep its shape. From there, we want to think that the sides of the rib cage are slightly, very mildly driven to the sides, diagonal down to the sides of the hips in order to activate a little bit more obliques. Because when you assume the tall spine position, you are increasing the distance between the rib cage and the pelvis. Thereby, you're stretching the entire belt of your core around, engaging the muscles, and that engagement creates the stability in the torso. And in addition, you are improving that engagement by thinking sides of the rib cage to the sides of the pelvis. And the third last thing, very important, we have another very interesting muscle in the back. It's called serratus posterior. It's attached to the forerib cage here and to the lower spine here. So it's kind of pulling on the four ribs down, diagonally down to the spine. In regular life, it assists us with the respiration. When you take a deep breath, those muscles, using the elasticity quality of your rib cage, because your rib cage has a very interesting characteristic. Pretty much like my measuring tape. The ribs can go closer to each other and can go away from each other. So when that muscle pulls, that serratus posterior pulls on the four ribs in the back, it's essentially flaring your four ribs to the back, just like this, without causing the collapse of the entire structure of the rib cage forward. And that's how we hide the rib cage. That's how we tuck the ribs in. Not by thinking that in order to tuck the rib cage in, we collapse the entire structure of the rib cage forward thereby driving the spine forward, because the rib cage is the spine in essence. But rather we think the structure is staying and we're hiding the rib cage by using the serratus posterior to pull on the fore rib cage, or on the four ribs, diagonally down to the lower back. So essentially that muscle is doing just that. Grabs a couple of ribs at the bottom and pulls them down, kind of stretching your rib cage itself a little bit, using the elasticity quality of your rib cage. That creates an impression that your stomach is being sucked in, and that is correct, but it's not because you're engaging the muscles of your front core, not because you're shortening it, therefore sucking the stomach in, but because rather you're pulling the stretched core by these guys in, but the core is still staying stretched. And that's how you're locking your torso between a few tensions: tension of the spinal column, preventing you from arching, crunching, tension of the belt of the muscles of the core, and serratus posterior, which are dragging and stretching the lower rib cage diagonally down to the pelvis. And that tension from the lateral engagement here is making sure that your lower ribs are glued to the spine, and thereby making that region impossible, impossible to bend or arch or crunch, giving you some extra stability. And yes, when you're doing the hollow body hold on the floor, it does create an impression that your lower back is kissing the floor, or the belly button is going down to the spine. But if you don't know about this muscle, you will be most certainly engaging the core to shorten and to pull the rib cage to the pelvis, rather than stretching the stretched core furthermore and sucking it in by the serratus posterior. And when you're on the floor doing this movement, lower rib cage goes diagonally down to the spine. Your lower rib cage, the back portion of it, flares back and touching the floor. Therefore, often they would tell you, make sure that your lower back is kissing the floor, but for a different reason. It should do that a little bit, not because you're on the floor and sucking the belly button in by engaging the core muscles, by shortening them. No, you're stretching the muscles of the core, kind of pulling on the stretch muscle in by the action of the other muscle, serratus posterior. And that's how you're keeping your body hollow. And if you do that successfully, then neither your shoulders nor your pelvis will be dragged forward, because essentially you're not slouching, you're just stretching the lower portion of the rib cage diagonally down to the back, using the elasticity quality of your rib cage. And with that, all your elements will be much more successful. Let me show you the example with the pull-ups. You go here and compare conventional idea, which is crunch, and you go up too far away from the bar and cannot gain enough height, versus our idea of the hollow body hold. Straight tree, neutral spine, upper spine up, lower spine down, sides of the rib cage to the sides of the pelvis just a little bit to tense the obliques a bit more. And now the lower rib cage is being pulled diagonally back to the spine. One. And now with this position you go up, you're very close to the bar, you can go high, you're stable, and nothing falls apart. There is no crunching, arching. Your hips are open because the pelvis is not pushed forward. Your shoulders are open because the upper back is not slouched. And you're much more stable with everything. It will dramatically help you with boxing, with handstands, with core exercises. But it is tricky to connect to this action. It will take you some practice. So you can do this exercise standing tall, just relax and picture somebody is pulling your four lower ribs diagonally down to the pelvis so that you can produce this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is your whole body hold. That is it. Simple, isn't it? Okay, now go to the gym, try it. Let me know how it went. Let me know if you have any questions, and enjoy your day. Thank you very much for your attention. Train your maximum with you. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.